Turning now to politics, a push to disband or reimagine the Minneapolis Police Department failed for the second time since George Floyd's death sparked nationwide calls for police reform. Joining us now live for more Where Things Stand is Cheryl Dorsey, retired LAPD sergeant and author of The Confidence Chronicles, the greatest crime story never told. You have great titles. Good morning, Sergeant.
Title.
Thank you for being with us. Great to see you. I'm now smiling. Listen, a year after the death of George Floyd, Minneapolis voters resoundingly rejected the Defund the Police initiative. What does that do for the police reform movement across the nation?
Well, listen, I think the whole defund the police situation actually becomes moot at this point. Nobody wants police officers removed from their communities. Certainly a mayor is not going to allow citizens to not have the proper service and resources. There's a contingency of people out there that would love for the police to be gone so that they can victimize and prey on others. And so I believed all along that this was destined to fail.
So, Karen Bass is leading the way in the House to pass police reform legislation. This is with the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Analysts have noted, though, that Democrats need to be strategic in how they get this done because there is zero Republican support on this front. What does that strategy need to include, Sergeant Dorsey?
Well, there's no Republican support because of the whole qualified immunity situation. If that's included, Tim Scott said it's off the table. And so what I want to see is officers held accountable. All of the stuff that they're talking about putting forth right now legislatively would do nothing to stop a Derek Chauvin, a Garrett Rolfe. It would do nothing to save the life of Breonna Taylor. Prohibiting federal no-knock warrants only stops federal agents. It doesn't stop city police officers. Those are the ones who serve narcotic warrants. And so accountability is really not the four-letter word they pretend it to be, and officers need to be held accountable. Thus, qualified immunity, if it's not on the table, then it's a toothless legislation as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that pushback was stealth. And, the Republicans have absolutely weaponized this issue. Oh, you're going to really create insecurity and more fear in our communities. But did the Democrats not message this correctly? They weren't saying defund, take police off the streets more necessarily. They were saying buttress it with support services, mental health outreach, et cetera, so that you attack the root causes of violence and crime in under-resourced communities. So could this have been messaged in a better way?
Perhaps it could have been messaged in a better way, and I don't say no to anything. I'm certainly for including clinicians and medical professionals when we're dealing with someone who's having a mental episode. But let's be real. If I conduct a traffic stop, I don't know that this person is bipolar. I don't know that they're going through a situation. I don't have the luxury of time to freeze frame, call a timeout, and get a clinician. And when someone deals with someone who's what we call 5150, having a mental episode, they're typically violent. And when they become violent, guess who gets called? The police, not a clinician. And so this is problematic in how they're approaching this from start to finish.
Police brutality and injustice, there's been this huge reckoning, as we know, in the country about this. We did make some progress in that Derek Chauvin was convicted. But Sergeant Dorsey, how do you rate, what grade would you give us as far as where we are now?
Well, listen, this was just one baby, tiny step in where we need to be. This was one officer. And since his conviction, certainly since he murdered Mr. Floyd in 2020, what has changed? Very little. Black and brown folks are still being killed with impunity by police officers. They're still going free. There's still no accountability. Police chiefs say they can't take these errant officers out of the field when they commit murder, when they violate their own policy, but they will take them out of the field when they don't get a vaccine. I don't know how you reconcile the two.
Truth to power there, Sergeant Dorsey. So what happens to the Black Lives Matter movement? Because they had a very strong narrative on defund the police, unapologetically. Now where do they go with this?
I can't speak for the Black Lives Matter movement and where they go and what they do. I think it was very disjointed. I think that their message was not standardized across all of these different chapters. I mean, here in California, the ladies who started it, Patrice Cullors, the founder, won't even talk to me. She won't talk to police officers. It's in their bylaws not to communicate with former, retired, current, whatever term you want to give to law enforcement, and who better to help you figure out how to attack, dismantle the police injustice system than a police officer. So I don't know where they go, and I don't think they know where they go.
Well, it's clear they have to come together if we're going to make
Got to
any
figure out a way to get the right
progress.
folks around the table to have a, you know, a conversation, right? A meaningful conversation.
Well, that's just the national landscape, whether it's local or national. We all need to come together and find ways and find common grounds to move forward.
Yeah.
Sergeant
Thank you,
Dorsey,
Sergeant
as
Dorsey.
always, thank you so very much for your insight and perspective. It's always so helpful.
We'll be right back, everybody. This is Your Morning on Spectrum News 1. Stay with us.